right, so welcome everybody to the High Ground channel. This channel is kind of aimed at answering some of the hardest questions that we have about Christian faith specifically. We're doing it in a relaxed setting, in a cool new virtual reality camera, so hopefully to make it a little bit more visually interesting. So welcome. This is our, what are we calling this, fellas? The man
bunker,
cave?
Bunker of knowledge.
The bunker of knowledge.
The theology base.
Yeah.
Cigars, whiskey, and theology.
So we're just going to, I guess, get into some of these questions. And I guess first out of the gates, kind of something I wanted to ask you guys and talk to you guys about. So we've been doing this for,
3.5 years, 4 years.
4 years, 5 years. Have you guys been to maybe a place where you kind of discuss on this level Bible questions that maybe you have about the Christian faith, or has this been something that's been unique to you?
It's been unique in the sense of like actually spending time. Usually we get into these Bible studies, these community groups that we have on the church basis, and the fact of, someone brings up like predestination, but we don't have enough time to do it because we don't want to spend hours or weeks doing it. We have the church sermon itself, and that's all we stick to. Right.
Yeah, I kind of got a lot of one person talking up there, and you're kind of taking a lot on his word, and maybe you kind of have a little bit of suspicion or doubt left over because you're never really sure how he arrived at that conclusion.
Exactly. And what about you? Is there any unique experience that we had in the past 4 years that you have learned before, or something that you were truly actually hungry for?
Well, I mean, definitely when the first time I met you guys at the house, I had no context of the situation whatsoever, what we were doing. There were some Mormon guys there, Bibles, no idea what was happening. Well, once I actually learned what you guys were about, that really...
Just for clarification, we are not Mormons.
You're not Mormons.
No.
Which was my question.
Yeah.
What is the guy's deal?
And maybe, I don't know, maybe we have to go back and edit this, but I guess maybe the way I should have started this out, we guys, let's just say my name, your name, and then what it is that you would like to see out of this channel, and what it is that you think you're doing here, and why we're making this. So,
all right, I'll start out. I'm Nick Brown. Really what I wanted to see come out of this channel is the things, almost giving a shortcut in some ways of the experiences I had in my life with struggling with doubts. The fact that a lot of things I had to work through was almost felt like on my own. I put doubts in a box in a corner and just left it alone for a long time, and it diminished my walk in my faith for a long time throughout college and that stuff. And I really had to truly face it at the end when I wanted to not believe anymore. Most people come to that senses and that stuff of resenting Christianity and theology in general, because those questions just eat you alive in general. Like they don't ever go away. They don't ever just snap your fingers and that stuff. They truly live within inside you, and they really eat at your soul.
Luke Conrad here, and I'd say the greatest thing is to ask questions, and most importantly, exposure to newer questions, things that I've never encountered before, things I've never wrestled before, things that, as I see it, thinking I know everything in the moment, and then a new question comes along, puts me in a completely different atmosphere and different environment of learning.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm looking forward to the most.
Yeah.
It's because that has truly grown my faith.
Right.
And I hope to expose, kind of take the rock off of other doubts that I may have.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. No, I totally agree, and we'll try to get through these talking points here pretty quick, but I definitely want to hear where you guys are coming from. My name is Andy. So I guess, what would I say? I guess along with another small group of leaders, kind of helped start Bible study for people that weren't Christian or people that were falling away from Christianity a while back, and we had the idea for this YouTube video channel, and we especially want to incorporate some cool technologies to make it seem like, you're sitting in the room with some friends, addressing some concerns maybe that you have. And I think the biggest thing for me that the reason I want to do this is because I know there's a huge far reach of people that can watch these YouTube videos. And I always get tired. For example, I'll look up a question, and it's always a quick snippet, maybe animated video of the attack on Christianity. It's very concise and it's easy to get your hands on. They come in short tidbits, and then what I find is that I end up having to read a book that's this thick, or maybe the first YouTube video on it's 2 hours of a sermon, and even in that sermon it doesn't totally go into it. And so I had the idea what I really wanted to do here was take the time myself to research these things on behalf of you, the watcher, or whoever might be out there looking for these things. We'll read the thick book, digest it, because we love that here. That's our favorite thing to do. So we'll read that and we'll present it in a way that's quick and easy and easily accessible. So I hope you guys enjoy the cool technology, the comfortable setting, and this being the first of our videos. So guys, what do you think has been, I guess, the biggest lessons that you've learned for how do you, I think maybe the biggest and most important thing that we first struggle with is how do we as Christians deal with doubt and move forward? What are the biggest lessons that you've learned in addressing big questions? And big questions, for example, mean the problem of evil. How does a good God allow evil? How does a good God send people to hell? Maybe would be another struggle. Heaven and hell. Maybe is God sexist? Is God a slave promoter? Is the Old Testament and New Testament God different? Is the Bible contradictory? Would be some other big ones that we've talked about.
What is sin in itself? How do you define sin?
How do you define sin? What sets Christianity apart? Yeah. How could we say that there's a triune God? I think that's the biggest break-off between other religions. How is God 3 in 1? So that's what I mean when I say big questions. And I guess as we've gone through many of these things for a long period of time, and then certainly there's a lifelong amount of research you can do on any one of these. Yeah. But I guess what would you say has kept your faith really strong? And I would definitely say that you two are both people who I'd say your Christian faith is very strong. What would you say are some of the big lessons for you that you've learned in your time of dealing with questions like these and in this context and helping people through that?
I think one thing to first off is to understand the weakness of your heart, the weakness of it, like what you're prone on rolling yourself into. One big thing is that I struggle with, and that I will talk later on, is about design itself, because many people face flaws in their design, and some people face blessings, and there's inequality in itself. For the fact that some people are just smarter than others. Some people have the gifts of athletic abilities, and we always question it from the basis of when we're a child. And when we grow up and when we have it, all the teachers want to say, what do you want to dream of being? And that stuff. And you have these outlandish dreams. Some of them are outlandish. Some of them you got it from your parents. But the fact that, like, you wrestle through life and you fail at those dreams, and then where are you left? You're left with these broken pieces in itself. So how I kept my faith going strong is the fact that I understood that my weakness was my boundaries and my limits, and how is God making me dependent on Him through that. A lot of it came through my speech. I was very deficient on expressing myself feelings-wise and expressing myself in a concise manner. People notice sometimes that I have jumpy words that just don't make sense at certain points, and that was it, and something that I had to deal with throughout my life. And then understand the boundary, and then understand that God will use me through those boundaries. He will use me in the fact that He'll make me uncomfortable with the boundaries itself. And then I have to rely and pray on Him daily to give me that strength and to understand, like, okay, God, I know I can't do this without you. I need you to give me that much more in order to make me successful or like reach other people in that way.
Yeah, that's good.
I think one of the biggest lessons for me was the importance of community, and not just in a Christian sense, but one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this is the exposure, is the multiple exposure to so many different opinions that you can kind of collect a collage of what you kind of see as a, I don't really know how to describe it, as a kind of like a loose, how would it go? More like just a movable force. You see so many different types of people. You see so many different opinions. You see so many different truths. And then when you start collecting them all together and asking them the same questions, you start understanding a certain dialogue amongst them. And so, with me, when you're asking yourself questions about what is true, what is actual, what is concrete, like in the Christian faith, what is reality within it, you start asking all these questions around to so many different people, and you start to realize that you don't really know a whole lot about what you thought you knew, which comes to one of what?
I think you're one of the best question askers that I've seen before. So Luke definitely is one of those guys that's interviewed and talked to more people off the cuff than I think I've ever met.
One of my favorite quotes from Socrates is the true wisdom is knowing that you know nothing.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's some big points. So I think, some good summaries of what you guys said, I think would be, there's the leave the ego at the door thing. And I think that's one big piece of this is knowing that, I think as a society we derive a lot of strength from being right the first time, if that makes sense. And especially when, I think there's even a sense where you look down on somebody who changes their mind on something. Mm-hmm. I think I even do that to people. But what I think is actually really ironic, and I brought this up once when we were talking to those the Muslims at a mosque near here, is I think we all agree that when we approach the end of the road, suppose we approach the judgment seat of Jesus Christ, or maybe it's Allah, and you approach them and you say, I'm sorry, Allah, that I spent my whole life as a good Christian, or I'm sorry, Jesus, I spent my whole life as a good Muslim and I never touched another book. But it turned out that you were wrong. Nobody has, what I found is that I think universally among different religions, nobody agrees that that's maybe okay. And so I think the irony of the situation is that, and sometimes in our efforts to be a good Christian, we fall short of what I would consider to be real righteousness. Mm. And what real righteousness, I think, would be this, the humility to know that we do fall short on some of these issues, and fall short of knowledge, certainly. But that we are, in all things, willing to humble ourselves. And the most important thing would not be our status. It would not be our church position. It would not be how people view us, but our status before God first and foremost as our ultimate authority. And that we do have an obligation to look into these things. And I think it's our obligation to take and weigh out the best option. And I think we're three people here that have generally agreed on that issue and have settled on what I would say Christianity is the best option. Mm-hmm. And I think that brings me